Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. And as you can see, me bringing back another guest to the show to talk some Hawks basketball. We have Reggie from Reggie's. It's World Sports.
Reggie's World Sports.
World Sports. My fault. We literally got this right before I came on camera, so I don't know why. I apologize, sir. But yes, that is his YouTube channel. Definitely go check that out. Subscribe. He's putting out content for both Falcons and Hawks for sure. So definitely check that out if you want to, see his takes, or maybe this podcast convince you to go watch this man's content after hearing what he says here. So appreciate you coming on, Reggie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. My birthday was yesterday. I had a nice little time celebrating my birthday. That's, looking forward to talking Hawks and, all the other things going on in the sports world. So I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you taking time out, man. Definitely to come on, man. I definitely hope you enjoyed your birthday for sure, man. And, like you said, man, we here to talk some Atlanta Hawks basketball, man. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So first thing I want to ask you about, man, is just obviously we are close to camp. Camp will be here at the beginning of October. They actually just released the day for Media Day, which is September 30th. And then the next 3 days following that, it will be in Athens, where they'll have their first 3 training camp practices October 1st through 3rd. So that means teams getting geared up to get back. Bit of a new look for the team. What are you, after this offseason that has happened and transpired, do you feel like the Hawks have addressed certain things that you felt like coming out of last season they addressed? Obviously, they traded DeJounte Murray. That was a big one. And they added some guys, drafted Shea, got Dyson Daniels in the trade. How are you feeling going into camp as of now in terms of what they've done?
I'll start with this. I think this offseason for the Hawks is reminiscent of what they did 12 years ago. And I want to kind of go back a bit during that time. In 2012, that was the year Danny Ferry came. He became the GM. And he inherited a core of Josh Smith, Joe Johnson, Al Horford, Marvin Williams, and he had a young, interesting young player in Jeff Teague. Mm-hmm. And what he saw was that core, that specific core, which was correct on his part, that core wasn't good enough to get to the next level. And so what he did was he traded Joe Johnson and Marvin Williams, and he got back expiring contracts and first-round picks. He traded Joe Johnson to Brooklyn and Marvin to Utah, and he kept Al Horford, who at that time was 26 years old, which is close to the same age as Trae Young, who's going to be 26 by next week. Mm-hmm. He kept Jeff Teague, who was 24 at that time, which is, he's basically about a year older than where Jaylen Johnson is now. Jaylen Johnson is 22, but he's going to be 23 in December. But they're similar in that they're similar from the standpoint that, like, Jeff Teague around that time was entering a contract year. He was in his fourth year, and he was entering his fourth year in the league. Same thing as Jaylen. And so he kept them. He kept Josh Smith, who eventually a year later they ended up moving on from him. But he broke up that core and he traded for Kyle Korver, who, at that time, like, people didn't like. Kyle Korver at that time was playing for the Bulls, and he was like their 7th or 8th man. So people didn't recognize him as like a starter, in which, eventually he became one here. And so Danny Ferry basically I don't want to say tore apart, but he kind of broke up that team. Mm-hmm. And it took him about like a year or so to kind of remake that team to the point where it was, Al and Jeff and Joe and Marvin and Josh, like, that was their core. And then he turned it into Al and Teague, and then Millsap came, and then Korver, and then DeMarre Carroll. And so I look at what Danny Ferry did there and compare it to what Landry Fields has done here. And essentially, he moves on. He keeps Trae, he keeps Jalen Johnson, and he moves DeJounte Murray, and he gets back, first round picks. Kind of like how they traded Joe Johnson and got a first round pick. He gets Dyson Daniels, who, to me, I look at Dyson Daniels and I think he could be the defensive version of what Cal Korver was offensively on those 60-win teams. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at Dyson Daniels from where he was with the Pelicans, kind of like where Korver was in Chicago. Dyson was like their 7th or 8th man, kind of unproven. You don't know if he's a starter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so he gets Dyson, and he makes some of these other moves on the fringes, where he gets Dominic Barlow. I think that's his name, right? Dominic Barlow, and he gets David Roddy. And, Danny Ferry, you look at comparing what he did. Now, this wasn't in 2012. This was actually the following year. But, he gets Kent Bazemore, Thabo Sefolosha, just these low-value signings. And so I look at what the Hawks have. I compare those two off seasons because they're similar as far as how they've approached, how they're going to do things. Try to retool, not tank, not go all the way down to the tanking side of things, and just, kind of just remake the team on the fly. And hopefully, eventually, between Trae and Jalen and Dyson Daniels and Zachary Ricochet, who they drafted, you're hoping that those guys, and look, realistically, they probably need to make another move or so, most likely, whether it's maybe a drafting a guy or a trade to really have something. But you can kind of see them trying to remake a newer core in hopes of maybe this young core of Trae and Jalen and Dyson and Ricochet and maybe Onyeka could be a younger, better version of what they were hoping they were getting with DeAndre Hunter and John Collins and Kevin Huerter and Cam Reddish and DeJounte. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I overall, even if I think that the Hawks have another move to make, and even if it might take them another year or two to get to where they really want to go, I think they're taking the right. I think they're entering the right path. They're doing what they should do and what they're supposed to do. And so I like the direction that they're moving towards.
Yeah, and I think too, it's interesting that you compared those two off seasons, that 2012 off season and now, because I think a lot of people, you have some people who just feel like we have to win because of this Trae Young pressure we don't want to lose him, or some people want him gone. It just depends on what side you're on.
Yeah.
Obviously he's entering a big off season coming up next year because that's when he can get a new contract. And so you're going to hit a higher number for that contract. And it's okay, do we want to pay Trae 60, 70 million, whatever that contract will be by that time. So when it comes to him in this roster, would you say that this roster, when you look at it, just fits better than a year ago? You maybe expect better chemistry on this roster. And then also, would you say there's a lot of upside for this roster? Because it is a lot of young players. I mean, but that could go either way. You could be bad and young, or you could be good and young. I mean, we've seen both. So where do you stand in all of that?
I think the roster fits better. I think you look at the roster, when I look at the roster on paper, I think this team easily should be the best defensive team of the Trae Young era. I look at Dyson Daniels, and I just defensively, he can do it all. He can guard on the ball, he can guard off the ball, he rotates well, he rebounds well for his position, he gets steals. He takes charges. Like defensively, he's a dude that's just made to play defense.
Mm.
And so, and look, I don't want to trash DeJounte too much, but it was obvious that DeJounte and Trae just didn't fit well.
Mm.
And the reason they didn't fit well was because they were too small. Like defensively, it was just bad. Like it was terrible. Like DeJounte was supposed to be like the Hawks thought DeJounte was supposed to be Drew Holiday, Derek White, like that type of defender. Guarding on the ball, off the ball. Like and he just wasn't that guy on that end of the floor. And so and plus he's 6'4", and you're asking him to guard shooting guards and small forwards. And so like the mix just wasn't there, and they were just too small. Like Trae and DeJounte were too small. And if you playing Bogey and DeJounte and Trae together, like you're small. Like the playing game, like the starting lineup was Trae, DeJounte, Bogey, DeAndre Hunter, and Clint Capella. Like you have no shot defensively when you're playing those five together. And so when you subtract DeJounte, even if they do, like I have my issues with Clint Capella. For those, I'm sure people watching this know, but like if it's like even if it's like Clint and Jalen, and like if it's Clint, Jalen, Trae, Bogey, and let's say it's, I don't know, Dyson Daniels or DeAndre Hunter or or even Vit Krejci, like that, that's just, that lineup is just better defensively because you have more size, and I just think just the mere fact that you have size on the wings with Dyson and Vit Krejci and DeAndre Hunter and Ricochet, like that's just those four. Like, when is the last time the Hawks had like wing depth like this? Like it's been a while. Like you have to go back to the Mike Budenholzer days, and so just the size on the wings, and even like David Roddy. Like I don't know if he's probably more like a small ball four or whatever, but like just more depth on the wings. I feel like the roster makes more sense just because of that.
Yeah, and I think too, they obviously wanted to shore up just perimeter defense. I know one of the big reasons why people are excited about Dyson Daniels is because of his point of attack defense. I think that can be shored up, which has been a big issue, obviously, the last 2 years with DeJounte and Trae. There's no denying that. And so I think realistic overall, I think they're hoping that can lead to, okay, if we can start stopping teams, I feel like this offense should still be a really good offense. They were a really good offense before when Trae was the main guy. Now you have Quinn with his system, which, I mean, you've heard players in the game say, hey, the Hawks run some great stuff. So, like, offensively, he can coach that up. And then it's not like, again, it's just Trae. I mean, if Jalen Johnson takes that next step, now you got you another guy still. So there's some things I could see them viewing and saying, okay, if these things happen, we improve defensively and Jalen takes a step and we maintain a good offensive efficiency, why couldn't we be a better team? Yep. Now, that leads me to my question of, since Trae is back in that role of being the main ball handler primarily, and we'll see how Jalen, what their idea is, because they may want him to play some point forward at times. Yep. But what do you see with Trae coming into this season and just now being back in that role in a Quinn Snyder offense with the guys around him, and how he can be most effective this season for the team to find success?
I think for Trae, like I think he should be excited. I think this is really the first time that he's finally he's gonna be the guy. That the ball's gonna be in Trae's hands now. And the last time that happened was the last time the Hawks had a winning season. It was 2021, 2022. The Hawks won 43 games. Now, they were still a playing team, and there are other reasons for that. But, like, Trae, like, the Hawks had a winning season, and Trae Young made an All-NBA team. Like, that was, like, if you look at that year, Trae averaged, I want to say, was it 28 points, 10 assists? He shot 46% from the field. He shot 38% from three. His true shooting was over 60. Like, that year was Trae's best offensive season. And so I expect Trae to at least come close to those numbers. I don't know if he'll like shoot that high of a field goal percentage, but like I'm expecting Trae to have his best year, just from the sheer fact that he's going to have the ball in his hands more. He doesn't have to work. The thing with DeJounte is like, you worry about with Trae, like you wonder like, when is it my turn to dribble? Is it DeJounte's turn? Where are my shots coming from? Like, and so I think before Trae had to, worry about like where his shots was coming from. When do I take over a game? When do I hand the ball to DeJounte? And I think, I've never been a guy that criticizes Trae for his efficiency per se, but if you compare the 2021-2022 year, and really, to be honest, even the 2020 year, like if you compare where Trae was from an efficiency standpoint, then compared to where he was those 2 years where he had DeJounte, his efficiency took a bit of a dip. And so I think it's reasonable to expect that his efficiency will tick up a little bit. And and you just look at what he's done, how he's improved defensively. I think Trae's should be in for his best season.
Yeah, and I think that would be obviously ideal. I think some people even said last year was outside of the injury was a good year, especially when he started heating up, because we know Trae started slow last year and then he heated up and it's like, all right, this is what we need from you. And so, if he can continue to take those steps, I mean, I made this point in my last episode. Some people forget what Trae Young has done, especially in the postseason. There's a lot of guys who we don't know if they can. We know they've had great regular season. We don't know if they could have a great series or a great playoff run. Trae's technically done that. I would say out of the 3 times he's been in the postseason, outside of the Heat year, Boston series, after the first 2 games, we saw what he did. He averaged like 30 plus, 10 assists, and led the playoffs in fourth quarter scoring to like the Eastern Western Conference Finals of the year, and he got eliminated in the first round. And then obviously we know about the Eastern Conference Finals run, what he did there.
Yeah.
So, I think people forget about those things. And like, I could basically say, I know Trae can do that because he's done it before. He just has to be put in a position to do it again.
Yeah.
And so this time around, though, if they do get back into a playoff positioning, obviously we've mentioned Jalen Johnson. He's a guy who I think a lot of people are excited about. A lot of people, when they talk about him, are like, what is his ceiling? I think that's something that I think a lot of people still feel like they haven't necessarily, like they know. Because it's like there are times where you feel like, could he be a star player, like legitimately a star in this game? Or is he maybe just a good player? Is he just be a really good player? Yeah. What are your thoughts on Jalen, especially coming into this year, crucial year, looks to be the second option? I mean, we'll see how that goes in game flow, because some people may say bogey just because of the natural chemistry that him and Trae have. Yeah. But in terms of what Jalen could do for this team and impact this game for them, what are your expectations and what would you like to see from him this season?
I think for Jalen, obviously like one of the big questions for the Hawks is like, can Jalen Johnson be the second, like you said, the second option or the second best player on a good team? Like, what does that look like? And so, like, we know that he's a very, very, very good transition player. Like his transition playmaking is incredible. Like he can dribble the ball across court. He can dribble behind his back, go coast to coast, dunk, throw lobs. He can draw and kick it and pass it to open shooters. He can rebound. Like, he can do all that stuff. And so I think the next step for him is just like his half court scoring, like his half court creation. What does that look like? The one, he's shown flashes of it. Like, you see him, he has that nice little turnaround fadeaway jumper that he loves to do in the mid range. And so you want to see him like maybe add some counters to that, and also be consistent with that too. Like, be consistent hitting that fall away mid-range shot that he likes. And like, just, can he add a spin move when he's dribbling in the ball in the post? Like, I don't know if you watched Chris Johnson. He's on Instagram. He posts, you'll see him like post IG clips of him just, you know, Jalen Johnson just shooting mid-range shots or dribbling the ball and, doing all different types of stuff, shooting the ball, working on his mid-range game, working on his off the dribble game. And so I think Jalen, like, the one thing about Jalen for me is, like, last year, the questions about him was like his jump shot. Like, can he be a better 3-point shooter? And he's done that. Now he didn't. You wish he can probably take more threes. Like, he took like 3.5 threes a game or whatever. But, like, he got better. His 3-ball got better, and so and it got way better because his second year he couldn't shoot at all. Like, teams were just leaving him open. And so I think just the fact that he improved in that aspect kind of just tells me that, like, this dude is willing to work hard at his game, and he's willing to work hard at the things that he needs to work on. And like every time I look at Jalen Johnson's Instagram, like, he's in the gym and he's shooting shots and he's practicing his shot creation. There was another clip earlier in the summer where he was working on, getting to the free throw line, finishing through contact. And so those are things that I'm looking forward to seeing from Jalen Johnson, is just his improvement as a half court shot creator, and just being more consistent overall as a basketball player. I mean, he's still young. He's entering his, I know this is like year 4 overall, but like this is going to be his second season as like a full-time starter. And so I'm looking forward to I think Jalen is going to have a big year. And for the Hawks, if they want to get to where they want to go, like, Jalen Johnson's the key. Like, they need him to be like a top 35-ish, top 40 guy. Like, they need him to be at least like a borderline all-star. Like, they need him to be that dude.
Yeah, and if he becomes that dude, I mean, that just opens up the possibilities, I would say, for this team and what they can do. Yeah. I think that's where I think you have a lot of people debating in the community of just kind of like, all right, well, can he? Do we think he is? Well, should we temper expectations? And I think it's one of those things that we'll just have to see how that comes together and how that works out for him as he continues his growth. Because, like I said, I mean, biggest thing maybe you also could say is injuries, even though when you look at outside of like the ankle injuries, which, I mean, it feels like was just like, okay, you twist your ankle. Does he need to wear ankle brace? Does he need to change his shoes? And then obviously we know what happened with the forearm injury that he had. If he stays healthy, you think, oh, okay, Jalen should be, able to be out there, contribute, impact the game in different ways. Because he's a guy that I've always said, if you just turn on the basketball game, but you didn't know who the players were, he gives off a vibe of like, I can tell he's a good player, if that makes sense. You know?
And the thing with Jalen, like, I felt like last year, like, even though he had a good year, I never felt like he was a household name in the NBA community. Like, he was a household name to us, like to Hawk fans. But I feel like NBA fans as a whole I don't think they really realize like how talented he is. Like, they might look at highlights, they might look at like, stuff on YouTube or NBA TV, but I don't think the NBA community outside of Hawk fans realize like how talented he is. And I feel like this year should be an opportunity for Jalen to like showcase to like, random fans that are fans of like the Warriors or the Mav fans or just random fans. Like, this is an opportunity for Jalen Johnson to showcase those guys. Like, I can play, man. Like, I'm deserving of a max deal, and I'm one of the top, dudes in the league. Like, I want to be in a young player discussion with guys like Scotty Barnes or Paolo Banchero, or I'm trying to think of another guy, Alfred Sengun. I want to be in that conversation, and I think this season for Jalen, I think he has an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and if he does, I mean, like I said, that'll just mean really great things for the team and what could potentially be maybe a better season than expected for a lot of guys.
Yeah, he's definitely the key.
Definitely. But that takes me to my next question. The guy who's supposed to make it all work, Quin Snyder.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are very indifferent on Quinn because they feel like what they thought he was going to do when he was brought in didn't happen. And that could just be maybe over expectations, maybe not truly understanding the situation, understanding the roster.
Yeah.
You have some people saying, well, we did better with Nate. And I'm just like, guys, like it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so what first is like, what are your thoughts on Quinn as the coach? Do you like what he has done? Do you have some questions? Are you kind of on the fence with him? Where does Quin Snyder stand for you? Because I think a lot of people, people were saying last year, it's Quinn on the hot seat. And it's like, it's his first full year. Like, that would be a bad look on the organization if they fired him after a year. It's like, so coaches just get a year and they're done. So what are your overall thoughts on Quinn?
I still believe in Quinn. I think I will say last year, like I was also one of those people that thought Quinn could make Trae and DeJounte work. And I thought, and I was one of those people that thought the Hawks could win in the high 40s and be a top 5 seed. And I was wrong about that. But I still like Quin Snyder. I think offensively, like you saw the flashes of what he could, even like he got DeJounte Murray. As bad as a fit he was, like he shot more threes and he shot threes at a career high rate for himself. So he got Trae Young to shoot more threes. And like, even like when Trae got hurt, and when Trae got hurt and it was the DeJounte show, and like I felt like at that time you saw like what Quinn could do when they like beat Boston twice, which was probably like the highlight of the season. And so, and like you saw him like kind of incorporate beat Krejci. And I feel like Quinn is one of those coaches to me. And it's interesting because you look at Utah, in Utah, like the year after Gordon Hayward left. I don't know if people remember this, but like in Utah, when Gordon Hayward left, people thought Utah was in a bad spot. Like we lost our all-star player. He went to Boston. It was Rudy Gobert, Derek Favors, Ricky Rubio. And at that time, nobody really knew about Donovan Mitchell. And that team was kind of like, at that time was kind of like, kind of similar to the Hawks, like unknown, like where is this going? And then ultimately, like Donovan Mitchell, it took him a little time in Utah, but he like found himself, and all of a sudden Quin Snyder was able to make that team work. And that team at that time was like, I think I was looking at the betting odds of that year, of that 2017-18 team, and that team was projected to win 40 games. They won 48. They went 48-34, and they were they were the 4 seed, and they upset the Thunder in the first round and got to the second round with Rudy Gobert and a rookie in Donovan Mitchell. Quin Snyder made that work. And so I look at that, and I just think if you give Quin Snyder like his type of guys, guys that can defend, guys that can, move the ball, play unselfishly, have some size, and just have competent players, I think Quin Snyder can still make things work. And I think he can. And when I look at this roster, it's not going to knock anyone's socks off when you look at the names. Like you look at this roster, I wouldn't blame any random non-Hawks fan that tells me that the Hawks are going to win 40 games. You know what I'm saying? And so I look at Quin Snyder as a coach that he can get more out of like average talent. And if you look at what he's done in Utah, he's done that. Like he's gotten the most out of, teams for the most part. And so I still believe in Quinn Snyder. I think this roster makes more sense. Obviously, we talked about how they have more size defensively on the wings. You still have Trae. You still have Jalen. There's enough interesting young Onyeka. Like, there's enough interesting young players that are like, they're not too young. Like, they're not rookies, but at the same time, like they have enough guys that like they've kind of been like Onyeka, like he's kind of just been waiting for him to have a bigger role. And so I look at the players on his roster, and there's between Onyeka and Jalen and Shea and Dyson Daniels and even like Kobe Buffkin, like there's reasonable hope and belief to think that like at least like 2 or 3 of those guys could pop. And if that happens, and I think all of those guys are like in the ideal age range. Like they're not too old. They're around that 23, 24, 25 range. Outside of Reese, he was 19. There's enough there to think that like some of these guys could like pop. And if that happens, now you're talking about a team that could win maybe 45, 44, 45, 46 games, as opposed to, their Vegas over-unders 35.5. And, they're like, there's enough there to think like if those guys pop that maybe this team could win in the high 40s instead of in the high 30s.